Hello, Kids Cook Real Food Mamas and Papas. Katie Kimball here today, mom of four, kids cooking teacher, former elementary teacher, to talk about something that a lot of parents ask me. I've been teaching kids to cook since 2016, and time again, I hear the same little bunch of questions. They include things like, well, I just don't know where to start. They include things like, oh, but Katie, kids are too messy. They're too slow. How do I get over it? Why bother teaching my kids to cook? And today's question, which is, how do I get my kids to want to cook? How do I get them to stay? They don't seem to care. So we got to talk about two bits, and that's not only the kids' motivation, but first our own mindsets. Guys, we have to be fully committed that teaching our kids to cook is a valuable and worthy pursuit before we can truly get our kids to be motivated and to buy into it. So the important thing is to start with our own mindset. And we got to talk about the long game, the short game, and the ROI. First, I just want to set in your mind the long game. The fact that when you launch a kid into the world at age 18, 19, whenever they finally leave home, if they know how to cook, if they know how to cut fruits and vegetables and buy real meats and make actual recipes with whole food ingredients, they will be leaps and bounds ahead of their peers. They will be able to nourish themselves. They will be more healthy human beings. They will know how to save money by buying ingredients instead of paying other people to cook for them. And they will also have that sense of independence, that sense of adulthood, right? I don't know if you remember when you entered the world, right? When you became adult, but there's sort of this twofold juxtaposition that really causes some tension. One is the headiness of being off on your own and of independence. And it just sort of swells and it fills you up and it feels so amazing to be on your own and be a quote real adult, right? Because I don't know if I even feel like a real adult yet now in my early 40s. But in college, it was just so exciting to have that independence. And again, that headiness of real life. But in the very next breath, or sometimes the next day, or when something would go wrong, there's also a tendency towards some fear and anxiety because it is a big deal to be a quote real adult for the first time and to be off on your own, right? And I don't want us as parents to baby our kids, to coddle them, to follow them to college so that they don't feel the fear and anxiety. I want us to give them the tools they need to have their own competence, confidence, independence, sense of self, so that when they go off into the world, there's a little bit of fear and anxiety, just enough to cause some friction, just enough to keep life interesting, to keep our stress level at a good, healthy, good, healthy level that propels us forward. I want that for our kids, right? So we need to give them the tools. We must teach them to cook. Of all of the things that you teach, I mean, it might not be the top. We're kind of talking life and death, but we're not talking eternal life and death. But of all the things you are going to teach your kids, how to nourish oneself and the people they love is way up there, my friends. Way up there in importance. So that's for us. Mindset, we got to think about the long game. Also, I want you to think about the short game. Wouldn't it be nice to have some extra helpers to take responsibilities in the kitchen for you? Wouldn't it be nice for your kids to be able to begin building that independence, that responsibility as a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, right? I tell people on podcasts all the time that the vision I want parents to hold into their head is that for, 4 or 5 years now, I have had at least one night off a week where I do not cook. Okay. Someone just teased me last night. We saw a couple of friends and my husband and I were talking about early mornings and, just getting up and all the kids going in different directions. And this friend who's very sarcastic teased me and said, oh, if only some kids knew how to cook. If only there was someone to teach them how to cook. And I was like, no, you didn't hear me. We have one kid left who just turned 8, who still needs help in the morning. The other kids just make a mess in the kitchen because they do serve themselves breakfast. Ages 11, 14, and 17. Half the time they're gone before I even get up because they can serve themselves breakfast, right? I get one night off a week. I get help when things are crazy and the food has to hit the table in 10 minutes or less and I'm not going to make it. I have like 4 people in my house under the age of 18 who can help. Even the 8-year-old can be, I can literally like toss him a cucumber and he can cut that on his own. He's our least trained. That happens with the last kid. So I'm talking to myself here. Number four needs to be trained. The youngest needs to be trained too. But my top three can legit help get dinner on the table. So there is a short-term ROI, both for the family, for you, and for them, because their confidence raises when they have competence and when they have real skills. And this is where we got to slide into, well, first, one last point on your own mindset, right? Think of the long game, think of the short game, and then you just got to pep talk yourself. You know what? They might be a little slow. You can mitigate that. They are going to be messy, but you know what? So am I. Don't invite me to your house to cook either if you don't want any messes. You can teach them to clean up all in due time, right? I promise that no matter how messy they are, no matter how whiny they are, the ROI is worth it. And when we signed up to be parents, however that happened for you, you knew, I hope, that it would not be a smooth, easy road all the time, that there would be difficult steps, but that each of those difficult steps has a massive ROI and is incredibly worth it. And here's where the kids' motivation comes in, okay? Because how we motivate kids is very intimately tied to the benefits the kids and the family get from teaching our kids to cook. So how do we motivate kids? I mentioned that when kids know real authentic skills, when they can nourish another human body and see that happen, their confidence rises much faster than a good job on an art project, than getting an A on a paper or a B and the teacher still writes excellent exclamation point at the top. Okay, doing real skills raises confidence because being competent in something, knowing how to do something feels good. It just feels good. And what is confidence but feeling good about oneself? Okay, so when we can get kids in the kitchen, it raises their confidence. It feels good. It makes them want to come back. So for us as parents, the first step is literally the first step. I know that doesn't make much sense, but what I'm saying is that competence confidence loop, that it feels good to know how to do something, will take over once you give them that first taste, right, of feeling good. So what is the gateway? What is the gateway into the kitchen to get that first taste of competence in the kitchen? I say, however you can figure it out, the best situation to get kids to cook, like cooking involved in a recipe for the first time, is when you're going to feed other people outside your immediate family. And here is why. If the grandparents are coming for dinner, if you're going to a potluck, there are built-in ways for you to say to the other adults, hey, guess who made this recipe? Or guess who helped with this recipe? Isn't it good? And I guarantee those adults will fill your child's bucket with authentic compliments, right? Genuine praise that your kids know matters. They know it's not empty. And then confidence and self-esteem increase. So I always say, try to get them involved when other non-family or non-immediate family, non-household adults will be in attendance, or kids too. That will get them motivated. That will build that confidence, competence loop. And ideally the motivation takes over. Now, you may need some other strategies because not all kids are the same. I don't know if you've noticed. For many children, especially the young, like the under 7, even under 8 or 9 crowd, doing big kid skills or doing adult skills or doing dangerous skills is enough motivation in and of itself. I've lost count of the parents who say, yeah, my kids were so excited to learn to use knives, I couldn't keep them out of the kitchen, right? Or take a 7-year-old who's in 1st or 2nd grade and say, we're going to work at the stove. This is so cool. Again, some kids are terrified of the stove. Not going to work for everyone. But for some kids, the knives, the fire, the trust of being able to do either big kid skills or adult skills is so amazing. It's that heady feeling that I felt when I went off to college, right? And was a quote real adult for the first time. You can give your kids a little taste, a little inoculation of that feeling when you up the ante and you raise your expectations and up level what you allow them to do. For my kids, I will tell you that they like agency and choice. And so you cook, you choose is a very good strategy for many kids. And this is particularly for your teenagers, right? Doing big kid skills, not going to work for your teenagers. Raising the confidence by serving others will work for some teenagers, but not all personalities jive with that. But lots of teenagers like to have their choice, do things how they want, and have less parental involvement, right? So you cook, you choose is a fantastic strategy. Meaning, if you are going to cook a meal or you are going to say, right, bake a recipe for a snack or a dessert, guess who gets to plan and choose what that meal is? The cook does. So if you have kids who say, oh, I don't like this dinner, I don't like what you make, da 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 da, right? You cook, you choose, but you got to learn how to cook to have that choice. Again, my kids, I have a senior and a freshman in high school, and they've been asked time and time again over the last 6 years, as we've worked with thousands of families teaching them to cook. They're often asked, well, what do you like about cooking? What do you like about being in the kitchen? And they'll say, well, we like it because we get to cook what we enjoy. We choose the meals we like best. You know, my son who's 17, Paul, he doesn't really love celery, but he loves cheeseburger soup that has celery in it. So what does he do? He cuts up the celery very, 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 very small. He cuts up mushrooms very, 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 very small. Or sometimes he'll omit ingredients he doesn't like. My daughter does the same thing. She'll omit ingredients that she doesn't love that I might add, right? I might be pumping up the nutrition and putting in greens and stuff. She's not going to do that when she cooks, because you cook, you choose. There are many, many ways, my friends, to get your own adult mindset in the right place, thinking about that value, that worthiness, that extreme ROI, both for the short game and the long game of teaching your kids to cook. And there are many ways to motivate them and keep them motivated, right? Think about what they like. Think about filling their heart, making them feel good, raising that confidence, because that will make them want to come back, and giving them choice and agency. All of those strategies, very, very helpful to get kids in the kitchen, and probably some other things as well as you think about your parenting motivational strategies. In a couple of weeks, on November 10th, I'm actually going to be doing a full hour-long training, which includes some of these mindset and motivation tips, but also some very practical strategies on what you can teach your kids at certain ages and what to teach first when you get them into the kitchen. Join me for Beyond Baking Cookies on November 10th. We'll make sure that that link is in this description. I'm Katie Kimball for Kids Cook Real Food and a Healthy Parenting Connector. See you back next week.